Nobody told me I needed a system for turning in papers, and that one gap cost me more time and sanity than almost anything else in my first year of teaching. Today, I want to talk about the classroom routines and procedures teacher prep probably didn't cover, and the 3 categories every secondary teacher should have mapped out before students walk through the door.
Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Khristen Massic, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher.
When I was student teaching, I was obsessed with content. I watched my mentor teachers explain concepts. I paid attention to activities. I noticed how they facilitated discussions. I focused on the lessons. But I honestly don't remember paying attention to things like how students entered the room, how late work was handled, how materials got passed out, what happened when students finished early, how labs got cleaned up, what students did when they were absent. I was watching teaching, but I wasn't watching systems. And then I got my own classroom, and I suddenly realized I had huge gaps, not in content, in routines. So I did what made sense at the time. I went and got those stackable paper baskets, 1 per class period. If you've ever assembled one of those things, you know they are not fun. But I had a system, or at least I thought I had a system. What I wasn't counting on was late assignments, because those came in too, into the same basket, mixed right in with everything else. And when I finally had time to empty one class's basket, I'd have to sort through the whole thing, figuring out what was turned in on time, what was late, and how late each thing was. And at the time, I had a late work policy, 10% off for each day past the due date, which sounds reasonable until you're standing there trying to figure out which paper came in today versus 3 days ago, and then calculating the deduction for each one, and then keeping track of all of that separately. I had a policy. What I didn't have was a system that made the policy workable. And that distinction between having a rule and having a system is honestly the whole point of this series. Years later, when I was mentoring new teachers, I started doing something that completely changed how I taught teachers to observe classrooms. I stopped asking them to watch content. I started asking them to watch routines. And the best classrooms I sent them to, not even in their own content area. One of my favorites was Chinese immersion classrooms, because most of the teachers I was mentoring couldn't understand a single word being spoken. And that was exactly the point. They weren't distracted by the lesson. They couldn't be. So instead, they had to ask, how do students know what to do? How do they transition? What happens when someone needs help? How do materials move around the room? What systems are carrying the weight of the classroom? This idea actually came from an administrator training I attended. The facilitator mentioned that Spanish speakers, I speak Spanish, so this one hit me personally, are actually at a disadvantage when observing Spanish language immersion classrooms. And I thought, how could that possibly be? She explained, because you're translating, you're comprehending, you're focused on the content of the lesson. But teachers who don't understand the language aren't distracted by any of that. They notice everything else. And honestly, that's exactly what I had done as a student teacher. I watched teaching. I missed systems entirely. Routines don't work because they exist. They work because they're explicitly taught, molded, practiced, retaught, refined. And honestly, students are probably going to need reminders in October, in January, and March. That's normal. Teaching routines isn't a 1-week activity at the start of the year. It's ongoing. So if I were helping a new teacher think through routines today, or honestly any secondary teacher heading into a new school year, I'd have them focus on 3 categories. And we're going to go deep on each one over the next 3 episodes. But here's the overview. Category 1, classroom management routines. These are the ones people typically think about first. Entering class, bell work, attention signals, bathroom procedures, transitioning between activities, picking up, dismissal. Basically, how does the classroom function day to day? Category 2, student accountability procedures. This is where I think secondary teachers need the most support and where I personally had the biggest gaps. Missing work, late work, redo opportunities, early finishers, checking grades, requesting help, absent students, submitting assignments. These procedures remove so many repetitive conversations. The stacking basket chaos I just described, almost entirely preventable with one clear late work procedure that students understand from day one. Category 3, classroom technology and lab procedures. And honestly, CT teachers and elective teachers need these more than almost anyone. Charging devices, logging into software, cleaning tools, returning supplies, using equipment safely, saving files, printing projects, resetting workstations. These routines aren't just convenient. They're instructional time savers. I think one of the biggest mistakes teachers make is assuming, I have a routine, so students know it. But having a routine and teaching a routine are two completely different things. That's what I did with the baskets. I set them out. I assumed students would figure out the system. I didn't explicitly teach what went where, when, or how. And I paid for it every time I emptied one of those baskets. So before school starts, and especially before you assume a routine is working, ask yourself, have I actually taught this? Not just mentioned it, not just pointed to it, taught it, modeled it, let students practice it, corrected it when it went sideways. Because the classrooms that feel calm and efficient aren't running on personality. They're running on systems that somebody took the time to build and teach. Over the next 3 episodes, we're going to get specific. 1 category per episode, 1 real routine per category, something you can take directly into your classroom and adapt. Because good classroom routines aren't really about having more rules. They're about building systems that quietly carry the workload for you. And if you're already thinking, okay, I probably need to map some of these out before school starts, I made that easier. The Secondary Teacher Systems Toolkit has 9 ready-to-use resources, including an editable routines and procedures planner that walks you through all these categories before students even walk through your door. Link is in the show notes. Here's your challenge before the next episode. Pick 1 routine, just 1, and ask yourself, have I actually planned how I'll teach this? Not just have it, teach it. Because the classroom systems that feel calm usually aren't running on personalities, they're running on systems. And that's something Teacher Prep should have spent a lot more time helping us build. Finish something that makes tomorrow lighter. I'll see you next time.